It happened in a single, fleeting moment, a glance I was never meant to catch, a flicker of light, a shift in posture, a quiet tension in the room that felt wrong, yet undeniably real. I tried to look away, to erase the image from my mind, to dismiss it as a trick of the light, a figment of my own overactive imagination. But something about it stayed, lingering like a secret I didn't ask to keep, a whisper in the quiet corners of my thoughts. My best friend's wife, the way the light touched her, the vulnerability in her eyes, the profound, unsettling stillness that seemed to emanate from her. I told myself it was nothing, just an accident, a meaningless fraction of a second. But as days bled into weeks, her presence followed me everywhere, in the mundane rhythm of my work, in the quiet solitude of my apartment, in the unsettling depths of my dreams. And now I'm no longer sure if what truly haunts me is the image itself, or what it awakened inside me. If you've ever found yourself caught in the uncomfortable space between loyalty and an undeniable forbidden truth, then you're in the right place. Hit that subscribe button right now and join me as we delve into the complexities of friendship, desire, and the secrets we keep even from ourselves. You won't want to miss a single chapter of this story. My name is Leo and I'm 34 years old. For most of my life I've considered myself a man of routine, of logic, of predictable patterns. I'm a high school history teacher in a bustling suburb of Chicago, a job I genuinely love. There's a quiet satisfaction in guiding young minds through the annals of time, in bringing the past to life. My apartment, a cozy two-bedroom in a brick building, is filled with books, old maps, and the comforting scent of brewing coffee. My life, by all accounts, was stable, fulfilling, and uncomplicated. And then there was Julian, my best friend since kindergarten. We'd navigated scraped knees, awkward teenage years, college dorms, and countless heartbreaks together. Julian was the extrovert to my introvert, the spontaneous adventurer to my cautious planner. He was a successful architect, much like my brother Marcus from a previous story, but with a different kind of intensity, a boundless energy that drew people to him. He was in many ways the brother I chose, a constant, unwavering presence in my life. And then there was Clara, Julian's wife. She entered our lives about 8 years ago, a whirlwind of vibrant energy and infectious laughter. Clara was a talented graphic designer, her creativity evident in everything she touched, from her meticulously curated home to her effortlessly chic style. She had a warmth that could melt even my reserved demeanor, and a sharp wit that always kept Julian on his toes. From the moment Julian introduced her, I knew she was special. She was perfect for him, balancing his boisterous nature with her calm strength, challenging him while adoring him. My relationship with Clara had always been easy, comfortable, built on the foundation of our shared love for Julian. We'd spent countless evenings together, dinners, game nights, weekend trips to Julian's family cabin in Wisconsin. She was like a sister to me, a trusted confidant, a source of easy camaraderie. There was never a hint of anything more, never a flicker of inappropriate thought. Our bond was pure, platonic, and deeply rooted in our mutual affection for Julian, or so I thought. The incident, the moment that shattered the comfortable illusion of my life, happened on a crisp Saturday evening in late October. It was Julian's annual Halloween party, a tradition he'd upheld since college. Their house, a beautifully renovated bungalow, was always transformed into a festive, slightly spooky wonderland. This year the theme was literary monsters, and Julian, ever the enthusiast, had gone all out, even constructing a life-sized Frankenstein's monster in their living room. I arrived dressed as a rather understated Dr. Jekyll, a nod to my academic profession, while Julian was a terrifyingly convincing Dracula, complete with fangs and a flowing cape. Clara, as always, looked stunning, embodying a sophisticated Medusa, with intricate snake-like braids woven into her dark hair and a flowing emerald gown. The party was in full swing. The house buzzed with laughter, music, and the clinking of glasses. Friends from college, colleagues from Julian's firm, and a smattering of Clara's design associates mingled freely. My sister, Maya, a vibrant journalist with an insatiable curiosity, was there too, chatting animatedly with Ben, a mutual friend from our college days. I was in my element, enjoying the familiar chaos, sipping a craft beer, and catching up with various acquaintances. Julian, as the host, was everywhere at once, his booming laugh echoing through the rooms. Clara, ever the gracious hostess, moved through the crowd with effortless charm, ensuring everyone felt welcome. It was around 10 o'clock. The music was loud, a classic rock anthem blaring from the speakers. I was standing near the kitchen island, engaged in a conversation with Ben about the upcoming Cubs season. Julian had just walked past, his arm casually slung around Clara's waist, pulling her close for a quick, affectionate kiss on the cheek before he moved on to greet a new arrival. Clara smiled, a genuine warm smile, and then turned to grab a fresh drink from the cooler. That's when it happened. The kitchen was brightly lit, a stark contrast to the moodier lighting in the living room. As Clara bent down to reach into the cooler, her emerald gown shifted, revealing a fleeting glimpse of her back just above the waistline. It was a simple, innocent movement, one she likely performed 100 times without a second thought. But in that precise moment, with the light catching her skin, I saw it. A small, almost imperceptible bruise, a faint discoloration just beneath the fabric of her dress. It was a deep, purplish hue, the kind that suggests a significant impact, not a casual bump. My eyes, for a fraction of a second, lingered. My mind, usually so quick to process information, froze. It was an indiscreet angle, a detail I was never meant to see, a private mark that spoke of something unsettling. I immediately averted my gaze, my cheeks flushing with an unexpected heat. I felt a sudden, profound sense of intrusion, as if I had stumbled upon a secret I had no right to know. "Leo? You okay, man?" Ben's voice cut through my sudden disorientation. "You just zoned out there for a second." Yeah, fine," I mumbled, forcing a smile, trying to appear nonchalant. "Just thinking about that Cubs lineup. It's a mess." Ben chuckled, oblivious, and continued his analysis of the team's pitching rotation. I nodded along, feigning interest, but my mind was racing. The image of that bruise, fleeting as it was, had seared itself into my memory. It was a small detail, easily dismissed, but it felt significant, heavy with unspoken meaning. I tried to shake it off. It was probably nothing. She could have bumped into something, fallen, had a clumsy moment. Clara was active, always moving. A bruise was hardly a cause for alarm, but the way it looked, the deep color, the location, it felt wrong. It felt like something more. I stole another glance at Clara, who was now laughing with a group of friends, her face bright and animated. There was no sign of discomfort, no indication of pain. She looked perfectly fine, perfectly happy. My mind immediately chastised me. I was overthinking, imagining things. It was an accident, nothing more, but the image persisted. It clung to the edges of my vision, a phantom bruise on my own skin. The easy camaraderie I usually felt with Clara suddenly felt strained, tinged with an uncomfortable awareness. Every time she laughed, every time she moved, I found myself subconsciously searching for a sign, a flicker of pain, a confirmation of my unsettling observation. If you're feeling the weight of Leo's accidental discovery, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us tell these complex human stories. The rest of the party passed in a haze. I tried to engage in conversations, to lose myself in the festive atmosphere, but a part of my mind remained fixated on that fleeting image. I watched Julian and Clara together, searching for any subtle cues, any hidden tension. They seemed normal, affectionate, just like any other couple. Julian was his usual boisterous self, Clara her usual charming self, but the bruise, the indiscreet angle, had planted a seed of doubt, a tiny, insidious worm in the comfortable apple of my perception. As the party wound down and guests began to trickle out, I found myself lingering, helping Julian and Clara with the initial cleanup. Maya had already left, promising to call later. Ben was helping Julian move some furniture. Clara was gathering empty glasses, her movements graceful and efficient. I found myself watching her again, my gaze involuntarily drawn to her back, to the spot where I had seen the bruise. It was covered now, hidden beneath the fabric of her dress. The thought of it, hidden and unseen, felt like a secret I was now complicit in keeping. "Thanks for staying, Leo," Clara said, turning to me with a warm smile. "You're always such a lifesaver." "Any time, Clara," I replied, forcing a smile, trying to keep my voice steady. Her smile, usually so comforting, now felt like a mask, a beautiful facade over something I couldn't quite grasp. Julian clapped me on the shoulder. "Seriously, man, you're the best. Couldn't do these parties without you." "Just glad to help," I mumbled, feeling a pang of guilt. My best friend, oblivious, trusting, and I harboring a secret, a suspicion that could shatter his world. I left their house that night with a heavy heart. The image of the bruise burned into my mind. The drive home was quiet, the city lights blurring past my window. My apartment, usually a sanctuary, now felt like a cage trapping me with my unsettling thoughts. I tried to rationalize it away. It was a bruise. People get bruises. It meant nothing. But the feeling, the quiet dread, persisted. It wasn't just the bruise itself, it was the implication, the way it had been hidden, the sudden unsettling awareness it had sparked within me. Over the next few days, the image of the bruise became a constant companion. It haunted my thoughts, crept into my dreams, and colored every interaction I had with Clara. When we spoke on the phone, her voice, usually so bright, now seemed to carry a subtle undertone of something I couldn't quite place. When we met for coffee, her laughter, usually so infectious, now seemed a little too forced, a little too brittle. I found myself analyzing every gesture, every word, every subtle shift in her demeanor. Was she avoiding eye contact? Was she flinching when Julian playfully touched her arm? Was there a hidden tension in their interactions that I had been blind to all these years? My mind, usually so logical, was now a whirlwind of suspicion and doubt. The guilt was immense. I was betraying Julian, my best friend, by even entertaining these thoughts. I was invading Clara's privacy, imagining things, creating problems where none existed, but the image, the indiscreet angle, refused to be erased. It was a silent accusation, a persistent whisper that something was wrong. I tried to talk myself out of it. I was a history teacher, not a detective. I was a friend, not a judge. But the seed of doubt had been planted, and it was growing slowly but surely, poisoning the comfortable familiarity of my life. One afternoon, a week after the party, I was grading papers in my apartment, trying to focus on the intricacies of the American Revolution, but my mind kept drifting back to Clara, to the bruise, to the unsettling feeling that something was deeply amiss. I picked up my phone, my thumb hovering over Julian's contact. Should I call him? Ask him if everything was okay? But what would I say? Hey, Julian, I saw a bruise on your wife's back at your party, and now I'm worried you're abusing her. The thought was absurd, monstrous. He would never. Julian was kind, gentle, loving. He adored Clara, but the image persisted. I put the phone down, my hand trembling slightly. I couldn't talk to Julian, not about this, not without concrete proof, not without knowing for sure. And I couldn't talk to Clara either. How could I bring up such a sensitive, potentially explosive topic based on a fleeting glance? I was trapped, caught between my loyalty to my best friend and a terrifying suspicion that refused to be silenced. The comfortable, predictable patterns of my life had been shattered, replaced by a gnawing uncertainty, a profound sense of unease. The image of that indiscreet angle, that small purplish mark, had awakened something within me, a fear, a suspicion, a sense of responsibility that I didn't know how to bear. And I knew, with a chilling certainty, that my life and my relationships would never be the same. The quiet tension in the room that night had indeed felt wrong yet unforgettable, and now it haunted my every waking moment. The image of that bruise, fleeting as it was, had seared itself into my memory. It was a small detail, easily dismissed, but it felt significant, heavy with unspoken meaning. I tried to rationalize it away. It was a bruise. People get bruises. It meant nothing. But the feeling, the quiet dread, persisted. It wasn't just the bruise itself, it was the implication, the way it had been hidden, the sudden, unsettling awareness it had sparked within me. My mind, usually so logical, was now a whirlwind of suspicion and doubt. The guilt was immense. I was betraying Julian, my best friend, by even entertaining these thoughts. I was invading Clara's privacy, imagining things, creating problems where none existed. But the image, the indiscreet angle, refused to be erased. It was a silent accusation, a persistent whisper that something was wrong. I was trapped, caught between my loyalty to my best friend and a terrifying suspicion that refused to be silenced. The comfortable, predictable patterns of my life had been shattered, replaced by a gnawing uncertainty, a profound sense of unease. The days that followed the Halloween party stretched into a torturous blur. My classroom, usually a sanctuary of historical facts and engaging discussions, became a place where my mind constantly drifted, replaying the image of that bruise, analyzing every interaction, every word. I found myself staring blankly at the blackboard, the faces of my students blurring, my thoughts consumed by the unsettling mystery. My life, once so uncomplicated, was now a minefield of emotional traps. Every phone call from Julian, Every casual text from Clara sent a jolt of anxiety through me. I found myself scrutinizing their social media posts, looking for subtle clues, for any hint of discord beneath the veneer of their seemingly perfect life. It was an obsessive, unhealthy habit, and I hated myself for it, but I couldn't stop. I started making excuses to see them more often, feigning casualness. "Hey, Julian, want to grab a beer after work?" Or, "Clara, I was thinking of trying that new coffee shop, want to join?" My true motive, however, was to observe, to gather more information, to either confirm my fears or finally put them to rest. During these encounters, I became a master of subtle observation. I watched Clara's body language, the way she sometimes flinched almost imperceptibly when Julian made a sudden movement, even if it was just to reach for a glass. I noticed how her laughter, once so free and unrestrained, now occasionally seemed to catch in her throat a fraction of a second too late. Her eyes, those expressive, intelligent eyes, sometimes held a faraway look, a quiet sadness that she quickly masked with a bright smile. Julian, on the other hand, seemed oblivious. He was his usual boisterous, charming self, full of energy and grand plans. He talked about his latest architectural projects, his upcoming golf trip, his excitement for the holidays. He often spoke of Clara with affection, praising her creativity, her intelligence, her beauty. "Clara's a genius, man," he'd say, beaming. "She just redesigned our entire living room. It looks incredible." His words, meant to convey love and admiration, now felt like a cruel irony, a testament to his blindness. The contrast between Julian's outward happiness and Clara's subtle melancholy was stark, and it only fueled my growing suspicion. The guilt, however, was a constant companion. I was betraying my best friend, imagining the worst, creating a narrative of abuse that might not even exist. What if I was wrong? What if it truly was just an accidental bruise, and I was projecting my own anxieties onto their marriage? The thought was almost as terrifying as the alternative. I tried to confide in someone, to seek an outside perspective without revealing the core issue. My sister Maya was usually my go-to for emotional dilemmas. We were having dinner at a small Italian place downtown one evening. "So, Maya," I began, trying to sound casual, swirling the pasta on my fork. "Hypothetically speaking, if you had a friend, a really good friend, and you noticed something off about their relationship, something that made you worry, but you weren't sure what it was, or if it was even real, what would you do?" Maya, ever perceptive, raised an eyebrow. "Off? Like what kind of off, Leo? Are we talking about a little marital spat or something more serious?" "Just a general sense of unease," I hedged, avoiding her gaze. "Like, one person seems a bit withdrawn, a bit sad, and the other seems completely oblivious." She paused, taking a sip of her wine. "Well, if it's just a feeling, and you don't have anything concrete, it's tricky. You don't want to accuse anyone or interfere unnecessarily. But if your gut is telling you something's wrong, it's usually for a reason. Maybe try to spend more time with the person you're worried about, one-on-one. See if they open up." Her advice, though general, resonated deeply. Spend more time with Clara, one-on-one, that was the key. But how, and what would I say? If you're as invested in Leo's dilemma as I am, please consider hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. Your support helps us create more compelling stories. A few days later, an opportunity presented itself. Clara called me, asking if I could help her move some heavy boxes of old design portfolios from her home office to the attic. Julian was out of town for a conference, and she didn't want to bother anyone else. It was perfect. A chance to be alone with her, to observe, to perhaps even gently probe. I arrived at their house on a Saturday morning, my heart pounding with a mixture of apprehension and resolve. The house felt different without Julian's boisterous presence, quieter, almost subdued. Clara greeted me with a warm smile, but her eyes still held that subtle, faraway look. She was wearing comfortable jeans and a loose-fitting sweater, her hair tied back in a messy bun. "Thanks so much for doing this, Leo," she said, leading me to her office. "Julian would have done it, but he's in Seattle all week." "No problem, Clara," I replied, trying to keep my voice light. "Happy to help." We spent the next hour moving boxes, the physical exertion a welcome distraction from the tension that hummed beneath the surface. As we worked, we chatted about mundane things. My students, her latest design projects, the upcoming holidays. I tried to steer the conversation towards more personal topics, but she skillfully deflected, keeping the tone light and superficial. Then, as we were carrying a particularly heavy box up the narrow attic stairs, she stumbled slightly. My hand instinctively reached out to steady her, my fingers brushing against her lower back just above her hip. Even through the thick fabric of her sweater, I felt it. A slight, almost imperceptible flinch. And then, a moment later, a faint, almost imperceptible wince of pain. My blood ran cold. It wasn't just a bruise. It was still there. Or perhaps a new one. The location, the subtle reaction. It was too specific, too telling. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat of confirmation. My worst fears, the ones I had tried so desperately to dismiss, were suddenly, terrifyingly, real. We reached the attic and I carefully placed the box down. Clara turned to me, her smile a little strained. "Thanks, Leo. That was the last of them." "Clara," I began, my voice low, my throat tight. Are you okay?" Her smile faltered completely. Her eyes, usually so vibrant, clouded over with a mixture of surprise and something akin to fear. "What do you mean?" "Of course I'm okay. Just tired from all the lifting." "No," I insisted, my gaze unwavering. "I mean, really okay. Is everything all right with you? With Julian?" She looked away, her gaze drifting to a dusty window, then back to me. Her lips were pressed into a thin line. "Leo, I don't know what you're talking about." Her voice was firm, but I detected a subtle tremor beneath the surface. "Clara," I pressed, my voice softening, trying to convey my concern without being accusatory. "I saw something at the party. A bruise. On your back. And just now you flinched." Her face went utterly pale. The color drained from her cheeks, leaving her looking fragile and vulnerable. Her eyes widened, filled with a raw, exposed fear. You saw that?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. I nodded, my heart aching for her. "Yes, and I'm worried, Clara, I'm really worried." The silence that descended upon the attic was heavy, suffocating. It was the kind of silence that speaks volumes, that carries the weight of unsaid things, of hidden truths. The dust motes danced in the shafts of sunlight filtering through the attic window, oblivious to the profound drama unfolding beneath them. Clara took a shaky breath, her chest rising and falling visibly. She looked utterly trapped, caught between a desperate need to maintain her facade and the overwhelming burden of her secret. It's nothing, Leo," she finally managed, her voice trembling. "Just a clumsy accident. I bumped into the kitchen counter." Her words were a transparent lie, and we both knew it. The bruise I had seen was too high, too specific, to be from a kitchen counter. And the flinch, the wince of pain, it spoke of something far more insidious. "Clara," I said, my voice gentle but firm, "please, don't lie to me. I'm your friend. I'm Julian's best friend. I just want to help." Her eyes welled up with tears, and a single tear escaped, tracing a path down her pale cheek. She looked utterly broken, her carefully constructed composure finally crumbling. "You don't understand, Leo," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "You don't know what it's like." "Then tell me," I urged, taking a step closer, my hand instinctively reaching out, but stopping short of touching her. "Tell me, Clara, please." She shook her head, her shoulders slumping in defeat. "I can't. I can't." The raw pain in her eyes, the profound despair in her voice confirmed my worst fears. It wasn't an accident. It was something far darker, far more sinister. My best friend, Julian, the man I had known and loved my entire life, was hurting his wife. The realization hit me with the force of a physical blow, knocking the air from my lungs. The comfortable illusion of my life, of my friendship, of my family, shattered into a million pieces. I stood there, utterly devastated, my mind reeling. How could this be? How could Julian, the kind, charismatic, loving man I knew, be capable of such a thing? The cognitive dissonance was immense, a painful clash between the Julian I knew and the monster I now suspected him to be. Clara, seeing the shock and horror on my face, seemed to retreat further into herself. She wiped her tears with the back of her hand, her composure slowly returning, albeit a fragile one. "Please, Leo," she said, her voice regaining a semblance of its usual strength, though still trembling. "You can't tell anyone, you can't. It'll only make things worse." "Worse?" I repeated, my voice hoarse with disbelief. "Clara, this isn't right. You can't live like this." "I know," she whispered, her eyes filled with a desperate plea. "But I'm not ready. Not yet. Please, just promise me you won't say anything. To Julian, to anyone." Her plea, her desperate need for secrecy, trapped me. I was caught in an impossible dilemma. My loyalty to Julian, my best friend, was now directly at odds with my moral obligation to protect Clara, to help her escape a potentially dangerous situation. The weight of her secret, now fully revealed, pressed down on me, suffocating me. I looked at her, her face pale and drawn, her eyes pleading. I saw not just Julian's wife, but a woman in profound distress, a woman trapped in a cycle of fear and silence. And in that moment, my choice became clear, even if it meant betraying my best friend. My loyalty, in this instance, had to lie with the victim. "I promise," I said, my voice barely audible, the words feeling like a heavy chain around my own neck. "I won't say anything. But Clara, you have to know I'm here for you. Whatever you need, whenever you're ready." She nodded, a single tear escaping and tracing a path down her cheek. A fragile, almost imperceptible flicker of hope seemed to ignite in her eyes. I left their house that day with a new, heavier burden. The image of the bruise no longer just haunted me, it was a stark, undeniable reality. My best friend was capable of something monstrous, and his wife was trapped. And I, Leo, was now a silent, unwilling participant in their dark secret, caught in a moral quagmire that threatened to unravel the very fabric of my life. The comfortable, predictable patterns of my existence had been shattered, replaced by a terrifying, uncertain path, and I knew, with a chilling certainty, that my life and my relationships would never be the same. "I promise," I said, my voice barely audible, the words feeling like a heavy chain around my own neck. "I won't say anything, but Clara, you have to know, I'm here for you. Whatever you need, whenever you're ready." She nodded, a single tear escaping and tracing a path down her pale cheek. A fragile, almost imperceptible flicker of hope seemed to ignite in her eyes, quickly overshadowed by fear. I left their house that day with a new, heavier burden. The image of the bruise no longer just haunted me. It was a stark, undeniable reality. My best friend was capable of something monstrous, and his wife was trapped. And I, Leo, was now a silent, unwilling participant in their dark secret, caught in a moral quagmire that threatened to unravel the very fabric of my life. The comfortable, predictable patterns of my existence had been shattered, replaced by a terrifying, uncertain path, and I knew, with a chilling certainty, that my life and my relationships would never be the same. The promise I made to Clara that day in the attic felt like a brand searing itself onto my conscience. It was a promise born of desperation and a profound sense of moral obligation, yet it also felt like a betrayal of the deepest kind to Julian. My best friend, the man I had shared my entire life with, was now, in my eyes, a perpetrator, and I was complicit in his secret. The cognitive dissonance was immense, a constant grinding ache in my chest. My days became a careful dance of deception. At school I tried to maintain my usual composure, but my mind was a battlefield. I'd stare at historical timelines, seeing not the rise and fall of empires, but the escalating tension in Clara's eyes. My nights were restless, plagued by nightmares, where Julian's booming laugh turned sinister, or Clara's silent tears became a torrent. I started finding subtle ways to be there for Clara, without raising Julian's suspicion. I'd text her more often, ostensibly about mundane things, a new art exhibit, a funny meme, a question about a mutual friend. But hidden within these innocuous messages were coded offers of support. "Let me know if you need anything at all, even just to talk," or "Remember you're stronger than you think." Her replies were always brief, polite, and carefully neutral, but I could sense the underlying gratitude, the quiet acknowledgement of my lifeline. Our one-on-one meetings became more frequent, always under the guise of helping her with a design project or a friend date when Julian was supposedly busy. We'd meet at coffee shops, libraries, or sometimes when Julian was out of town at her house. During these times I'd try to gently probe, to offer an escape route. "Clara," I'd say, my voice low, "you don't have to stay in this. There are resources, people who can help." She would always shake her head, her eyes filled with a familiar mix of fear and resignation. "It's not that simple, Leo. He's not always like that. And then he's so sorry he promises it won't happen again, and I believe him." For a while, her voice would trail off, a profound weariness settling over her. And then it does. Her words painted a chilling picture of the cycle of abuse, the tension, the incident, the apologies, the false hope, and then the inevitable repetition. It broke my heart to hear it, to see the vibrant, confident Clara I knew slowly being eroded by fear and despair. Julian, meanwhile, remained largely oblivious. He was still the charismatic, ambitious architect, often consumed by his work. He'd occasionally make a passing comment about Clara being a little quiet lately, or stressed with her deadlines, but he never delved deeper. He seemed to genuinely believe their marriage was just going through a rough patch, a normal part of any long-term relationship. His blindness was almost as infuriating as his actions. It made me question everything I thought I knew about him, about friendship, about the people we truly are beneath the surface. The tension in their home, however, was palpable to me. I started noticing subtle shifts in Julian's behavior towards Clara, a sharp tone when she disagreed with him, a possessive hand on her arm that lingered a moment too long, a dismissive wave of his hand when she tried to express an opinion. These were small things, easily overlooked by others, but to my now hyper-aware senses, they screamed of control and underlying aggression. One evening, about 2 months after the attic confession, Julian invited me over for a guys' night. Just him, me, and Ben. Clara was supposedly out with friends. We were watching a basketball game, beers in hand, when Julian's phone rang. He glanced at the screen, his jaw tightening. "It's Clara," he muttered, a hint of irritation in his voice. He answered, his tone clipped. "What is it, Clara? I'm with Leo and Ben." "No, I told you I'd be out. Just come home when you're done. Don't make a scene." He hung up abruptly, his face flushed. "Everything okay?" Ben asked, oblivious to the undercurrent. "Fine," Julian snapped, then forced a smile. "Just Clara being Clara, overthinking things." But I saw the flicker in his eyes, the barely contained anger, and I knew. Clara wasn't overthinking. She was likely trying to check in, perhaps feeling unsafe or simply seeking reassurance. The incident, though minor, solidified my resolve. This wasn't just about bruises anymore. It was about control, about a pattern of emotional manipulation that was just as damaging. If you're feeling the growing urgency of Leo's situation, please consider hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. Your support helps us create more compelling stories. My own life began to suffer. My teaching, once a source of joy, became a chore. My students, usually so engaging, seemed distant, their questions about history feeling trivial in the face of the real-life drama unfolding around me. My sister Maya noticed my withdrawal. "Leo, you've been off for months," she said one Sunday afternoon during our usual brunch. "You're quiet, distracted. Is everything okay? Is it work? Are you seeing someone?" I forced a laugh. "No, Maya, nothing like that. Just a lot on my mind. Work's been stressful." She narrowed her eyes, her journalist's intuition kicking in. "You're a terrible liar, Leo. This is about Julian and Clara, isn't it? Something happened with them, didn't it? They seem different." My heart pounded. Maya was too close, too perceptive. I couldn't tell her the truth, not yet. It would put her in an impossible position, and I wasn't ready to break Julian's world open to anyone else. "No, Maya," I insisted, my voice firmer than I felt. "They're fine. Just normal marital stuff. You know Julian. Always a bit intense." She didn't look convinced, but she dropped the subject, though her gaze lingered on me, filled with concern. The conversation left me feeling even more isolated, even more burdened by the weight of my secret. The turning point came a few weeks before Christmas. Clara called me, her voice a barely audible whisper, laced with a raw, desperate fear I had never heard before. "Leo," she choked out, "I need your help. I can't stay here tonight. He's really angry. I'm scared." My blood ran cold. This was it, the moment I had been dreading and preparing for. "Where are you?" I asked, my voice calm despite the frantic pounding of my heart. "Are you safe?" "I'm in my car," she whispered. I just drove away. He's still at the house. I don't know where to go." "Come to my place," I said, without hesitation. "You know the code. I'll leave the door unlocked. Just come straight here. Don't call anyone else. Don't tell anyone." "Thank you, Leo," she sobbed, a profound relief in her voice. "Thank you." I hung up, my hands trembling. This was no longer a secret I could passively observe. This was an active intervention, a direct confrontation with the dark reality of Julian's actions. I paced my apartment, a whirlwind of anxiety and adrenaline. What would I say to her? What would I do? How would I protect her? About 20 minutes later, I heard the faint click of my apartment door. Clara stood there, her face streaked with tears, her eyes wide with terror. She was wearing a thin coat, her hair disheveled, her hands clutching a small purse. She looked utterly broken, fragile, and utterly terrified. "Clara," I said, rushing to her, my voice filled with concern. She collapsed into my arms, sobbing uncontrollably. I held her tightly, feeling the tremors running through her body, the profound fear that emanated from her. It was a moment of raw, unfiltered human connection, a bond forged in shared fear and unspoken truths. After a long moment, she pulled away, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. "I'm so sorry, Leo. I didn't know where else to go." "Don't apologize," I said, my voice gentle. "You're safe here. You're absolutely safe." I led her to my sofa, wrapped a blanket around her, and made her a cup of hot tea. As she slowly calmed down, she began to speak, her voice low and trembling, recounting the events of the evening. It had started with a minor disagreement about holiday plans, escalating quickly into a verbal assault, then a physical shove that sent her stumbling against a wall. It wasn't the first time, she admitted, but it was the worst. The fear in his eyes, the cold anger, it had finally broken her. "I can't do this anymore, Leo," she whispered, her voice filled with a desperate resolve. I can't." "You don't have to," I said, my voice firm. "You don't ever have to go back to that." We talked for hours through the long, silent night. I listened, offered comfort, and for the first time, allowed myself to fully acknowledge the depth of my concern, the extent of the danger she was in. I told her about the resources available, the shelters, the legal aid. I told her she wasn't alone, that she deserved better, that she was strong enough to leave. As the first hint of dawn began to paint the sky, a new resolve settled over Clara's face. The fear was still there, but it was now tempered by a quiet determination. "I'm going to leave him, Leo," she said, her voice clear, though still fragile. For good this time. My heart swelled with a mixture of relief and apprehension. This was it, the moment of truth. The comfortable illusion of my life, of my friendship with Julian, was about to be irrevocably shattered. But looking at Clara, seeing the flicker of hope in her eyes, I knew it was the right choice. "I'll help you," I promised, my voice unwavering. Every step of the way. The path ahead was fraught with challenges, with difficult conversations, with the inevitable fallout that would ripple through our lives, through our family, through our circle of friends. Julian would be devastated, angry, perhaps even violent. My parents, Maya, Ben, everyone would be affected. But as I looked at Clara, seeing the fragile strength returning to her eyes, I knew that some secrets, no matter how painful, had to be brought into the light. The indiscreet angle I had seen that night at the party had indeed haunted me, but it had also awakened a fierce protectiveness, a moral clarity that demanded action. And now, finally, it was time to act. "I'm going to leave him, Leo," she said, her voice clear, though still fragile. "For good this time." My heart swelled with a mixture of relief and apprehension. This was it, the moment of truth. The comfortable illusion of my life, of my friendship with Julian, was about to be irrevocably shattered. But looking at Clara, seeing the flicker of hope in her eyes, I knew it was the right choice. "I'll help you," I promised, my voice unwavering, every step of the way. The path ahead was fraught with challenges, with difficult conversations, with the inevitable fallout that would ripple through our lives, through our family, through our circle of friends. Julian would be devastated, angry, perhaps even violent. My parents, Maya, Ben, everyone would be affected. But as I looked at Clara, seeing the fragile strength returning to her eyes, I knew that some secrets, no matter how painful, had to be brought into the light. The indiscreet angle I had seen that night at the party had indeed haunted me, but it had also awakened a fierce protectiveness, a moral clarity that demanded action. And now, finally, it was time to act. The first light of dawn, pale and hesitant, crept through my apartment window, painting the room in muted greys. Clara, exhausted but resolute, had finally fallen into a fitful sleep on my sofa. I sat in my armchair, a cold cup of tea in my hand, my mind racing. The plan, though still nascent, began to form. This wasn't just about getting Clara out. It was about ensuring her safety, her independence, and her future. When Clara awoke a few hours later, the fear was still etched on her face, but the resolve I had seen earlier was stronger. We talked for hours, meticulously outlining the next steps. She would need to gather her essential documents, some clothes, and her work equipment. The most dangerous part would be returning to the house, even if Julian was still at work. "I can't go alone, Leo," she confessed, her voice trembling. I can't face him, or even the house, by myself." "You won't have to," I assured her, my hand resting gently on her arm. "I'll go with you. We'll make sure he's not there, and we'll be quick." The next day, a Tuesday, Julian was scheduled to be at a client meeting across town. It was our window. My heart hammered against my ribs as we drove towards their house, the familiar streets now feeling alien, charged with a sinister tension. We parked a few blocks away and I walked Clara to the front door, my senses on high alert. The house was silent, seemingly empty. "Stay here," I whispered. "I'll check." I slipped inside, moving through the quiet rooms, confirming Julian's absence. The air felt heavy, thick with unspoken history. I returned to Clara, giving her a reassuring nod. We moved quickly, efficiently. Clara, with a quiet determination, gathered what she needed: her passport, bank statements, a few changes of clothes, her laptop, and a small box of sentimental items. Each item she packed felt like a step towards reclaiming her life, a defiant act against the control that had stifled her. As she packed, I kept watch, my eyes scanning the street, my ears straining for any sound of Julian's car. The tension was almost unbearable. Just as we were about to leave, Clara paused in the living room, her gaze sweeping over the space she had once called home. Her eyes welled up, and a single tear escaped. "I loved this house, Leo," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "I put so much of myself into it." "You'll build a new home, Clara," I said, my voice gentle. "One that's truly yours, truly safe." We left the house, the small suitcase and laptop bag, feeling like monumental burdens, yet also symbols of liberation. We drove straight to a women's shelter in a neighboring county, a place Clara had researched online. The staff there were kind, understanding, and immediately put her at ease. It was a stark, humbling experience, seeing the faces of other women who had endured similar or worse situations. It solidified my conviction that we were doing the right thing. "Thank you, Leo," Clara said, her voice choked with emotion as we stood outside the shelter. "I don't know what I would have done without you." "You would have found a way, Clara," I replied, a lump in my throat. "You're stronger than you think, and I'll still be here every step of the way." Leaving her there in that unfamiliar place was one of the hardest things I'd ever done, but I knew it was necessary. It was her first step towards a new life, a life free from fear. The next day the storm broke. Julian called me, his voice a furious roar. "Leo, have you seen Clara? She's gone." "Her car's gone, some of her stuff is gone. What the hell is going on?" I took a deep breath, steeling myself. This was the moment of truth. "Julian," I said, my voice calm, "Clara is safe. She's made a decision to leave you." A stunned silence followed, then an explosion of rage. "Leave me? What are you talking about? This is your doing, isn't it? You've been putting ideas in her head. You've been talking to her behind my back." His accusations were a torrent, laced with a venom I had never heard from him before. "No, Julian," I replied, my voice firm. "This is Clara's decision. She's been unhappy for a long time, and she deserves to be safe." "Safe?" he scoffed, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "What are you implying, Leo? Are you saying I hurt her? That's insane." "I love Clara." The denial, the immediate deflection, was chilling. It confirmed everything Clara had told me. "Julian," I said, my voice hardening, "I saw the bruise, Julian, at the Halloween party, and I know what happened the other night." Another silence, this one even more profound, more chilling. Then a low, guttural growl. "You saw what? You've been spying on us? You sick bastard. You're my best friend. How could you betray me like this?" The conversation devolved into a shouting match, a painful, brutal exchange that tore through the fabric of our lifelong friendship. He accused me of jealousy, of trying to steal his wife, of fabricating lies. I stood my ground, refusing to back down, refusing to let him manipulate me or gaslight Clara's pain. Finally he hung up, slamming the phone down with a force that vibrated through my own receiver. If you're feeling the raw emotion of this confrontation, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us tell these complex human stories. The fallout was immediate and devastating. Julian cut me out of his life completely. He blocked my number, unfriended me on social media, and spread rumors among our mutual friends, painting me as a manipulative betrayer. Our shared social circle was thrown into chaos. Some friends, loyal to Julian, believed his version of events and ostracized me. Others, more perceptive, sensed something was amiss and reached out cautiously to hear my side. My sister, Maya, was one of the first. She called me, her voice filled with concern. "Leo, what is going on? Julian just called me, screaming about you and Clara. He said you're trying to break up his marriage." I finally told her everything. About the bruise, about Clara's confession, about the night she came to my apartment. Maya listened in stunned silence, her initial skepticism giving way to horror and then fierce protectiveness. "Oh, Leo," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "You did the right thing. You absolutely did the right thing. Julian, I can't believe it." Her unwavering support was a lifeline, a much-needed anchor in the storm of accusations and isolation. Ben, our mutual friend, also reached out, confused and worried. I explained the situation to him carefully without betraying Clara's trust. He was shocked, but eventually he too came to understand, offering his quiet support. My parents, who had always adored Julian, were heartbroken and confused. They tried to mediate, to understand, but the truth was too painful, too complex for them to fully grasp. They loved both Julian and me, and the idea of one of us being capable of such actions, or the other being a betrayer, was almost unbearable. I couldn't tell them the full extent of Julian's actions, not yet, to spare them further pain. I simply explained that Clara was deeply unhappy and needed to leave, and that Julian's reaction had made our friendship impossible. They mourned the loss of our friendship and the unraveling of what they thought was a perfect marriage. Clara, meanwhile, began the arduous journey of rebuilding her life. The shelter provided her with legal aid, counseling, and a safe space to heal. She filed for divorce, a process that was emotionally draining but necessary. Julian, in his anger and denial, initially tried to fight it, but eventually, faced with the evidence and the unwavering support Clara received, he relented. The divorce was finalized a few months later, a quiet, somber end to a once vibrant union. I continued to be there for Clara, visiting her at the shelter, helping her find a new apartment, supporting her as she navigated the complexities of starting over. Our relationship, once defined by our shared friendship with Julian, now evolved into something deeper, a bond forged in adversity and mutual respect. It was a platonic love, a profound connection built on trust, empathy, and a shared understanding of the darkness she had escaped. There was no romantic entanglement, no forbidden passion, just a deep, abiding friendship, a testament to the power of human connection in the face of trauma. As the months turned into a year, Clara blossomed. She found a new job, reconnected with old friends, and slowly, painstakingly, began to reclaim her vibrant spirit. The fear in her eyes gradually faded, replaced by a quiet strength, a newfound confidence. She was still healing, still carrying the scars of her past, but she was free. My own life, too, found a new equilibrium. The loss of my friendship with Julian was a profound grief, a gaping hole in my life that would never truly heal. But the moral clarity I had gained, the knowledge that I had done the right thing, brought a sense of peace. I had chosen compassion over loyalty, truth over comfortable deception. It was a painful lesson, but a necessary one. I continued teaching, finding renewed purpose in guiding my students, in instilling in them a sense of justice and empathy. My relationship with Maya deepened, built on a foundation of shared understanding and unwavering support. Ben remained a steadfast friend, a quiet presence who understood the complexities of my choices. Years passed. Julian eventually remarried, finding a new partner who, by all accounts, seemed to bring him a different kind of happiness. We never spoke again. The chasm between us was too wide, too deep to bridge. The memory of our friendship, once so vibrant, became a bittersweet echo, a reminder of what was lost and what was gained. Clara and I remained close friends. We would meet for coffee, share updates on our lives, and occasionally reminisce about the past, always with a quiet understanding of the journey we had shared. She was a testament to resilience, a living embodiment of strength in the face of adversity. The image of that indiscreet angle, the bruise on Clara's back, never truly faded from my memory. It remained a stark reminder of the hidden struggles people carry, of the secrets that lurk beneath the surface of seemingly perfect lives. It was a painful catalyst, a moment that shattered my comfortable world, but also one that forced me to confront uncomfortable truths, to make difficult choices, and ultimately to become a better, more empathetic man. The haunting image had awakened not just fear and suspicion, but also a profound sense of responsibility, a moral compass that guided me through the darkest of times, and in doing so, it had irrevocably changed everything. And that concludes our story. If you were as moved by Leo's journey through loyalty, betrayal, and the courage to act as I was, please give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more compelling and realistic stories like this one. Your support means the world and helps us create more content you'll love. Thank you for watching.